And may there be simchas by all of you, by all of us, as the expression has it, by all Yiddish kinder, all Jewish children, and simchas in the whole world. I speak to you as I wrote to you from the hotel in Princeton, New Jersey. The wedding was here last night, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a few moments, but let's begin with our customary tzedakah and prayer. Hashem. There we go. In. Okay. And chapter, please join me if you have a Tehillim or on your phone. You can join me, chapter 120. Shir Amar li shel Adonai batzeroseli karosi vayaneni Adonai atzila nafshi misas sheker meloshen remiyah. Yitin lecha ma'yisif lach loshen remiyah. Chitzer gibesh nunim im gachli risomim oyeli ki garti meshech shachanti moli kedar. Rabbas shochna la nafshi miseni sholem ani sholem v'chiyadaber heima la melchama. You see that curtain is a little crooked. Let's straighten it out. That's better. So, yes, you can see I'm, thank God, flooded with emotion of gratitude and of simcha for the merit of having brought our second youngest son, Menashe, to the chuppah last night to marry Mushki Wunsch is the name of Wunsch in Yiddish. I actually know her family for the following reason. As a yeshiva student, I learned a year and a half, almost 2 years in Miami, back in 1978, 79. And at that time, her parents had become observant. Her father, Dr. Wunsch, may God send him refuah shleima, was unable to make the wedding. He needs a great recovery. At that time, he was the head of the emergency department at Mount Sinai Hospital in Miami. Together with his wife Chaya, they'd become observant, Bali Tshuva, Chabad Hasidim, and they were very much beloved and still are. I recall that they had an extraordinarily open home. Their car was always available to us, the senior yeshiva students, for the various programs that we ran. We needed the car to pick up children, to bring them to programs and take them home. The big station wagon, it was like a mitzvah, the mitzvah car. And their home was open, and they were very generous in supporting the yeshiva, the work of Chabad in Miami in those very early days back in the late 70s. And so Chasha is the granddaughter of Dr. Wunsch. In fact, Chasha, my daughter-in-law, as of last night, her father, Ephraim, was my camper when I was head counselor in the Lubavitch overnight summer day camp in Miami. 1979, I was the head counselor. And I remember him and his brothers were little kids in the camp that we ran. I should tell you that camp that we ran, it was already its 4th year or so. So it was started before us. But even when we came and spent our 2-year stint there, the kids would literally go to the parks on a Sunday and speak to parents and inspire them and encourage them to send their children to a Jewish overnight camp. Many of the kids it was sponsored. Parents couldn't afford. It's a whole story. And this was an incredible summer camp that for 4 weeks that literally changed lives. Children after this summer camp went on, many of them, to yeshiva and to live to one degree or another committed Jewish lives. On tens and tens of families. Anyway, so I'm just telling you that the father of Chasha, Ephraim, my new mechutin, So I was head counselor. I didn't have a bunk, but he was in the camp, and his younger brothers too, and older brothers that I ran. So it's really, connection that goes back way back. Hashem has his ways, and we're having a reunion here in Princeton, New Jersey. So the wedding last night, dear friends, I want to tell you two things that stand out about the wedding and even before the wedding. As you know, a Jewish wedding, so there's the signing of the ksuba, the marriage contract, which are the obligations of a Jewish husband to his wife. Then before that, there's the signing of the tnoyim. Tnoyim is the engagement contract. Now, the engagement contract, just add this as an aside now, it's an interesting parenthetic comment that I'd like to share with you, to teach you. So the engagement contract is signed just before the chuppah. It's a very short engagement, officially. It's half an hour, 10 minutes. They're engaged before, but the formal engagement contract, the signatures, is done just before the chuppah. Why? Why not do it, as many people do, why not do it when they get engaged, whenever that took place, which is very common? In Chabad, we don't. The reason is because we want to make it as close as possible to the actual chuppah. Why? Because there's a marriage contract, and it's a l'chaim, and it's a simcha, and it's signed. Now, if bride and groom decide to break up, which can happen, so it leaves us somewhat empty, because here we had this ceremony by which they committed to get married, and there's no real ceremony to undo that. So you don't want, by mutual agreement, then it's over. The engagement is broken, but there's no ritual to guide you through it. So we want to avoid that at all costs. So we do it just before the chuppah. So we're going straight from the formal engagement straight to the chuppah. You follow? See, when a marriage is broken up, there's a get. There's a holy way they came together. There's a holy way the marriage is annulled. So there's a finality. There's a get, but there's no get after an engagement. So there's no real ritual. It lacks somewhat of closure. So to avoid that emptiness, we just simply do the tanoim, the engagement, back to the actual chuppah. So the contracts are signed. In Jewish law, you remember for your own weddings, you didn't sign the ksuba. In Jewish law, the people that enter into a contract do not sign the contract. It's signed by witnesses. Witnesses sign that these two people, whatever the marriage contract, whatever, it could be a financial contract, business, whatever it is. Marriage is not a business, it's a different kind of contract, but still, the truth is the ksuba is a financial thing. The ksuba is a financial contract. That's essentially what it is. It's to protect the wife in the case of death or divorce. He promises a lump sum from his estate, and she's the first creditor. It's financial protection for the woman. That's based what the ksuba is. The sages also added honor, cherish, respect, love, provide. That's also added in the ksuba. But first and foremost, it was enacted thousands of years ago by our sages for a woman's right to protect her. That in the case of his death or divorce, she has financial security. Talk about women's rights. I'm telling you a law that goes back 2,000 years, where in the rest of society, and even till recently, in many societies, a woman is something you own. He owns his wife. Not so in Judaism. He has to be in awe and respect her, and she's protected financially in case the marriage ends. So it's really a financial obligation. So as I just said to you, all Jewish contracts, it's signed by witnesses who say that these two people entered into agreement. She agreed to marry him, and he agreed to marry her, and he's promising, and it's being signed, so there's a whole ritual by which he expresses his commitment. It's called a kinyan. Without explaining it now because we're running out of time. It's a beautiful, fascinating area of Jewish law that you all underwent, I would hope, and by which he undertakes the obligation. It's signed by the two witnesses. Likewise, the engagement contract is signed by two witnesses. That an engagement contract The wedding, the ksuba, involves only the bride and groom. The engagement contract, that involves the parents and there's guarantors. It's a whole very elaborate contract of commitment to get married. So why am I telling you this? I wanted to have this signed in a Chabad house, in a place that belongs to the Rebbe. So once the decision was made to make the wedding in Princeton, I called up the nearest shliach to where the wedding's going to take place, which is in the Westin Hotel where I am right now. And he's a 10-minute drive away. Beautiful Chabad house, 2 buildings on 18 acres of land. He just purchased 8. New Jersey is vast in terms of its forest, uncultivated area. And as you know, New Jersey is the Garden State. He told me to build the 2 buildings, the beautiful mikveh and offices, and the Chabad house next to each other, Tudor style, very, very culturally blended. He had to remove trees. I was telling you how crazy things are here. He had to remove 45 trees to make space. And you have to replant them elsewhere and pay a fee of $400 per tree. Per tree. I'm just telling you what he had to go through. And he has 18 acres. For God willing, he has big plans in the future. Anyway, I don't know this shliach, Rabbi David Dubov. I know his name. He knows my name. I have to tell you, friends, when I called him, we'd like to sign the ksuba by you with the greatest of pleasure. And he was in touch with me from their engagement there, which is the last few months. Whatever you need, just tell me. We used his mikveh before the wedding, and I went today before Shabbat. And for the signing of the ketubah, he put out a beautiful tablecloth with delicacies and l'chaim to celebrate as if it was his own brother's children, his own children. And I, of course, I did what I needed to do to support his work. It was my pleasure to do it. Of course, it's not what he did it. I invited him to the wedding with his wife, and he was given a great honor at the wedding to read the Tanoim, the engagement contract before the chuppah, and they break the plate. But I'm just bringing out, when I called now to thank him, it says, David, I said, thank you so much. Your hospitality is he says, we're brothers. Of course. We're brothers. How beautiful. Just to come for this alone was inspiring enough. We're brothers because we're fellow Jews. And we're shluchim of the Rebbe, we're soldiers in the Rebbe's army. What doesn't one soldier do for the other? And he's calling me constantly. What do you need? Tell me. We needed Tehillims. He brings Tehillim. You need a Torah, we'll bring a Torah to the hotel. We didn't need the Torah because my father-in-law, the beautiful small Torah MTC has, which we wrote, the family commissioned and wrote in honor of my father-in-law, blessed memory. That's the Torah that we brought here. So he didn't need his Torah. I'm just saying he offered this. So that's one snapshot I want to share with you. I'm not sharing it with you just as it's a nice story. He said, this is our story. We are brothers and sisters. Fellow Jews, we're not just the tribe. This is family. This is what Chabad is all about, but this is what Judaism is all about. It's so inspiring when you see it. A stranger, he's opening his heart, his home. And he went out and bought, it was such a beautiful spread, little cakes. He didn't just put out buy a sponge cake. He put out, when we went to his Chabad house to sign, 3 kinds of l'chaim and beautiful little cakes and little, what do you call them, little tarts. That was elaborate. He'd gone to, I don't know where he got it from, because there's no bakery here. No, where he went to get it. All prepared, set with a gleaming white tablecloth, was heartwarming. Now, the second snapshot I want to tell you is about the wedding itself. The unity, the boys, I'm talking about my son's friends. maybe 10, 20 of them. None of them live in New Jersey, I don't have to tell you. Some came from Montreal and Crown Heights and other places. Friends, it was so palpable. I mean, you just saw it. A whole night, it's like people were vying to dance with him. To dance with him. They're circling him, they're carrying him, they're dancing with him. The love that these boys have for each other, the respect, the love, the unity. How they're celebrating in their he's the first one of that group to get married. He's the first. Maybe there's one. No, I think he's the first to get married of his class. There's another boy, but he couldn't make it because his wife's expecting, so he couldn't make it. Very upset. Baruch Hashem. She's due in 2 weeks, and they live in Atlanta, and he was wanted to come in, but so he's the second one to get married. So this joy they had in their friends' simcha. Such the unity. I'm sure you've all been to a Hasidic wedding. It's so beautiful. A Jewish wedding. I mean, a Jewish wedding. I want to contrast. Other weddings you go to, I'm talking about Jewish, not just in name, but Jewish and really in spirit. Bride and groom could leave. Nobody would even notice at some point. Everybody's having a good time. Cha-cha-cha, pa-pa-pa, ha-pa-pa. Everybody's having there a good time, which is nice. But they could leave and, nobody even know. A Jewish wedding, bride and groom are king and queen. They're the focus the entire night. No one takes their eyes off them the entire dancing. It's all around the bride and groom. They're lifted and they're carried and they dance, not the first 5 minutes of the whole night. You're there. At a Jewish wedding, you're there. It's the guest. It's an obligation to bring joy to bride and groom. There's no greater mitzvah than that. It's one of the greatest mitzvahs is to be at a wedding to bring joy to bride and groom. And they're the focus. And that creates such a unity. We're all here, this young couple getting married, and everybody's blessings to them. They should build a beautiful Jewish home and blessed with healthy children and love and respect. The whole night, this is that characterizes the whole night. The whole night is l'chaim and blessing and dancing. Of course, I've been to many weddings, but it's a tribute to my son, I guess, but his class, but the unity, the love, and a lot of them stayed for Shabbos here in the hotel. At least 5 or 6 or 7 of his friends. Yeah. Stayed for Shabbos to continue. Tonight we're eating all together. Of course, all the meals together and fabrengen with them, a nice big minyan. There's a big crowd here. So it continues. Like every wedding, it's a 7-day celebration, but here it's the first 3 days is literally in one place. So we're all here continuing it. So what am I sharing with you? I'm sharing with you the nachas. I'm wishing you the same. Nachas from your children. This incredible message of Jewish unity. And it has to beg the question, so where do they get this from? Where do these kids, where do they get this sense of, say, it goes beyond just a friend, a buddy. It goes beyond that, friends. There's friendships out there in the world that without it, it goes beyond. You know where it comes from? I'll tell you where it comes from. And by the oil, his ufruf was by the oil. There's many homes they bought up that have been converted into areas people stay, sleep. 7 or 8 of his friends came for Shabbos. We fabrengt, learned and prayed and fabrengt together virtually 24 hours, very little sleep. So where does this unity come from? Friends, when we learn Torah, and particularly when we learn Torah at its depth, which is what Chassidus is the soul of Torah. When you learn the soul of Torah, you start to feel your own soul and you feel somebody else's soul. And when you connect at a soul level, that's a real connection. I'm saying this is a soul connection. It's not just enjoy your company, we're friends, we're buddies, we're in the same class, we experience a lot together, we share a lot in common. It goes way beyond that. It's a neshama thing. It's a soul thing. When his friends are dancing, you feel the soul. You feel in the dancing, in the celebration, that what they're saying is that this young couple that's getting married now, two halves of one soul, a glorious link in the golden chain of the Jewish people. It's a celebration of the Am Yisrael Chai, the eternity of the Jewish people. It's so much bigger than just buddies and friends and a marriage. Fell in love, met a girl, got married. It's so much bigger than that. It's part of the destiny of our people. You feel it. You feel this is cosmic. Every marriage is a cosmic moment that they're going to carry the flame. They're going to build a Jewish home and illuminate the world with the light of Torah. They're in the Rebbe's army. They're soldiers in the army, and it's another couple that is, in their way, is going to contribute to the great mission of spreading godliness in the world. That's what this marriage is. Although these words aren't said, but that's what it all is. This is the whole celebration. At the chuppah, at the wedding, some friends, some people surprised me, flew in from Montreal. One of them is not a Chabad, I'm not going to say his name, not Chabadi, belongs to another Hasidic group. We became friendly, we learned together. Very wonderful person. And he came, I was so happy. So he tells me after the chuppah, see, under the chuppah in Chabad, they read the Rebbe's letter that the Rebbe would send to bride and groom. And spiritually he continues to do so, to bless bride and groom. So the letter is read. And what does the letter say? It blesses bride and groom. They should build a home on the foundations of Torah and mitzvahs. You're illuminated by the soul of Hasidus, an eternal home, an eternal edifice from which light radiates to the world. That's what the home is all about. The blessing is all about. So he tells me, he says, I'm not Chabad. We don't read this letter under the chuppah. He says, but I'm listening to the Rebbe's letter. He says, that's what you guys are all about. This is what it is. He was so inspired just from hearing the letter. Light, bringing light to the world. That's what this new home, this foundation, this couple is dedicated to do together as one soul. So my dear friends, I wish this nachas from you and your children, starting with you. We're all part of this. This is not somebody else's simcha. This is our simcha. This is your simcha. It's a time to embrace who we are as Jews, our souls, get to know our own souls. We have to learn Torah, learn Chassidus. Chassidus is the deeper level of Torah, which is what we teach in MTC. Go on Chabad.org or MTC's YouTube channel, and there's hundreds of classes that from myself, my son, and others. Savor the soul of Judaism. It's exquisite. It stirs your own soul and engenders this deep unity, the eternity of the Jewish people. The soul's eternal. It's not just after death it lives on. The trick is it should be internal. When we're alive, we're eternal. Not just later. Soul, the person died, the soul lives on. It's the soul living now. That's what it has to be. Of course, after a person dies, we're all talking about the soul. It's a little late. It's now. Now to live a soulful life. Every mitzvah we do, the tefillin and Shabbos, it embraces both the body and the soul. That's what it's all about. Revealing the soul, revealing the light, the holiness, the sanctity in the world. So desperate for light and beauty, true beauty, and innocence, and holiness, and eternity. Every mitzvah is that. Every mitzvah. And we, in our observance of it, we bring that to the world, which the world is seeking as never before. So good Shabbos, dear friends. Thank you all for joining. Here it's a little bit later, so I have a little bit of a luxury here. Let's wish each other good Shabbos.
Shabbos, Rabbi.
Good Shabbos, Rabbi. Thank you.
Mazel tov.
Thank you. Good to
Shabbos,
see you.
Rabbi. Mazel tov.
Good
Shabbos, Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
I hope